I'm trying to get the best horror book recommendations on the internet, so I am testing out 10 different places that give recommendations. This is episode 5, and I'm going to be getting some recommendations from Goodreads. They have a feature based on books you've rated before where they recommend other books, so I will be reading 3 of those to see how good their recommendation service is. There's a playlist in the description with the first 4 episodes with booktube, bookstagram, Libro.fm, and Pango Books, so make sure you check that out if you haven't seen those yet. Just a reminder, I can read 1 book from an author I've read and liked before. 1 book has to be a new to me author, and the 3rd book can be another new to me author, or it can be an author I have read from and disliked. I'm ready to test how good Goodreads' algorithm is, so let's pick a book. So we are going to pick the first horror recommendation from Goodreads. So if you go to Browse and Recommendations, that is where this is. I have my list of genres that I like. So we're going to go to horror and click on more. And I think I'm just kind of gonna look through these, see what they have, and then we'll go from there. So there are some books that I'm definitely already interested in reading, some that I don't really plan on reading. This is an interesting list. There's a few on here that I have read, actually a decent amount. So I'm going to go through and just say I'm not interested in them. Okay. And, I've read this one as well. Cows, not cows. Do they really think I want to read cows? Oh, God. Okay. So let's reset this. I feel like this is a completely different list. Oh, there's some really good ones on here. Well, how am I supposed to choose? Okay. I think we're gonna start with one by an author I have not read from before. I could read Any Man. I've heard good things about this one. I could read Slewfoot, but I don't know about that one. I could read My Darling Dreadful Thing. I could read The Night House. I have not heard good things about that. I don't even know what some of these books are. Interesting. Huh. But there is one that caught my eye. And that is Anybody Home by Michael J. Seilinger. I was at an event that this author was at, and I have a copy of it. So I think we're gonna go with this book. Let me grab it and I'll quickly tell you what it's about. So Anybody Home is a home invasion book, and we are watching a professional seasoned home invader teaching you, because it's in second person, how to do home invasions. So we are criminals to be. Maybe we're already criminals and we're just asking for some more help. And this mastermind home invader is giving us some tips. So I'm very excited for this one after hearing the author talk about it and just hearing some other people that have read it. I'm very excited. I think it'll be a really unique book. I wasn't expecting Goodreads to recommend this to me because it doesn't have a huge readership, and it has a pretty low average rating. It's 3.17. Not that that has ever stopped me from liking books before, so I'm excited to jump into this one. I have made it 79 pages, well, I guess 80, into, why did I forget what I'm reading? Anybody Home. I am liking this. I think it's very interesting and unique, but there's just something about it. I think maybe I was expecting to feel more scared, because I feel like home invasion stories are some of the most realistic, which makes it the most scary situations. But there's no names for anybody, so I feel like something about that just makes me feel slightly disconnected from the story. And part of me wants to feel like I truly am a home invader. And I'm not feeling that. I mean, I want to be convinced that that's who I am. I do like that we are learning about the things that go into situations like this. And I know the author wrote this to deal with a home invasion that he dealt with personally. which I think is a very unique way of kind of dealing with those scary feelings from something like that. And like, I understand why we aren't named and why they aren't named. Like, I get it, because obviously they don't want to get sent to jail and stuff like that. But there's just like something about it that feels slightly off. I am still liking it. So the prologue says that on May 14th, 2000, and then it's X'd out, a family of 4 returned home from a day at a local amusement park. The events that took place over the following 48 hours are still not entirely known. What you're about to witness is a sample of a factual record. If the sample is of any interest, the complete record can be made available at the studio upon request. And then we have a victim list. And then we're almost like conversing with this person, but it's very one-sided. Like, we're not getting our own responses. Maybe that's part of my issue. Like, with it being in second person, it's a one-sided story. So I just feel not weird about it. I mean, I guess maybe I should feel weird about pretending I'm a home invader, but I don't know. Like, I'm liking it. I think it's a very fun concept, but I'm disconnected at the same time. But I'm looking forward to continuing to read, because everything we've gotten so far is set up, kind of canvassing the area, figuring out who the target is, getting to know their patterns and everything like that. And like, in theory, it should be scary, because literally somebody could be outside of my house watching to see when like I'm not home. But now it seems like it's gonna be the start of like the actual invading. Well, that's already happened kind of, but the family's knowledge of the invasion. So we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping that I start to connect to it a little bit more, but it's still a good time. I've made I just lost my bookmark, 150 pages into Anybody Home, and I am liking this, but not in the way that I thought I was going to. I thought that this was going to be 5 stars without a doubt. I just feel so removed from the story, and that is partially like what we're supposed to feel. There's no names. We don't really have a lot of details with the characters themselves, but like, I'm supposed to feel like I am part of the story, and I'm just not really feeling that. I'm not feeling a lot of the tension, because there's some choices with the writing that is just a little weird. I don't know how to explain it, but because it's a one-sided conversation, it just feels a little stilted sometimes. And like, I get what is trying to happen, but at the same time, I don't think the execution is my favorite, even though it's a very unique format. It's a very cool concept. There's just like something about the way that it's done that is keeping me out of the story. The front says it's an intense psychological horror. I feel like I don't even feel that, because we're not getting any emotions from the person that is like in the situation committing the home invasion, because it's supposed to be us, but like, are their thoughts supposed to be our thoughts, or are we just supposed to fill in what you think people would think? I don't know. I'm not loving that aspect of it, and I think that they are trying to introduce some of the emotion in it at this point, but it's by people that I still don't really know anything about, so I just don't care if like out of nowhere they decide that like certain things, whatever, I don't want to spoil anything. I'm still overall enjoying it though. Like, I am liking it. I don't know why this was a 5-star prediction for me, because I haven't read anything from this author. I just like wanted to love it, and I'm not loving it. I am liking it, but it feels like a very big disappointment for me. I have finished Anybody Home. I think that this had a lot of potential, but I guess it didn't live up to my specific expectations. I thought I was going to be scared while reading this. I thought I was going to be so creeped out. And there were some interesting and then also disturbing things that happened, but none of it was enough to make me start like caring that much about anything that was going on. Very, very, very cool concept, one that I thought I was going to love, and I did like it, but I definitely didn't love it like I wanted to. So we are starting out Goodreads recommendations with 3 stars, so 30 points. I really was expecting more. I thought we would have more points from this.
I don't know. But I am glad that I read this. So let's pick the next book.
Nova is here to pick a book with me. So I just read from an author I've never read from before, so I want to read one that I have read from before. I've read from C.J. Lead. I've read from Gabino Iglesias. I've read from Simone St. James. There's two. The Last Haunt by Max Booth III is on here. I have given his books very high ratings in the past. I've read from Josh Winning, so I could do Heads Will Roll. Christina Henry and Christopher Golden. Josh Mallerman, Rachel Harrison, Stephen Graham Jones, Paul Tremblay. So many options. Hello. Oh, I think the ones that are calling to me are The House That Horror Built and The Last Haunt. I have given both authors 5 stars, so it's a good chance for this. Let's pick the book of the two that has the higher average rating, maybe? So The Last Haunt has a 3.88, only 306 ratings. Interesting. I own this one. What was it? I forget. 3.88. Okay. And then The House That Horror Built, 3.22. Interesting. That's lower than I was expecting. Okay. Well, then I'm going to read The Last Haunt.
So The Last Haunt is so short that I figured I would just check in with you in the middle and then at the end. I am 62 pages in out of 115. And this is my fourth. This is my 4th book by Max Booth III. I feel like I'm not as invested in this one as I have been in some of his other books, but also like I do really want to know what's going on. I think that the reason for that is the format of the story, but let me tell you about the story first. So this is an oral history of the McKinley Manor massacre, which is based on, I think it's the McCamey Mansion or something. So this is following this dude that puts on an extreme haunt. So he has waterboarding, puking and eating it. Some like really disgusting stuff. So this is separated into 3 chapters, and then in each chapter we are getting kind of like an interview from different people who were interacting with Gus McKinney in different ways. So chapter 1 is called A Haunting in Texas. We are learning about things from his neighbor, a retired cop, his ex-wife, his dad, somebody that runs haunts in general, the person that runs the official Facebook group, somebody that worked for him as an actor, and then some people that have participated in it. Oh, and then also the brother of somebody that we find out has died during this. So this is set at the 1-year anniversary of a death in the extreme haunted house. And this is the last attempt to make sense of a mysterious brutality that occurred on that fateful Halloween night. Constructed from interviews with the survivors, this oral history is the closest anyone has ever come to documenting the truth behind the McKinley Manor massacre. So in chapter 1, we are getting how this haunted house started, the ins and outs of it, the different people that played parts in it. And that's mostly what I've read. I have started chapter 2, which is called The Killing of Jessica Henderson. And that's when we start to get her brother's perspective and her ex-boyfriend and how they kind of became aware of the whole haunt situation. There are a few different like media tactics that got them more national news. But then we know pretty much the whole time that there is going to be a death there. We also know that Gus, the one that's running it, is not alive. So there's a little bit of suspense of like what happened specifically to her and also to him and just how people are handling the situation. It's very interesting because this guy clearly is like not okay. He gets this obsession with running this haunted house that's not even really a haunted house. Like the scare things, like attractions, it's not even like a fun like people jump out at you and scare you thing. It's very basic, just like abuse, but you are signing away your rights pretty much. There's been some disgusting things. I mentioned the vomit. That's like, ugh. Thinking about it makes me feel sick. But people are coming from everywhere to be a part of this. So we're seeing his obsession through other people's eyes in the aftermath of everything. I am liking it. I think that it's interesting to see people's willingness to put themselves in a situation like this. You have to sign a contract that's like hundreds of pages long with all these ridiculous things that they could do to you. And I just like cannot fathom wanting to do that. But also there's like the whole curiosity aspect of it where it's like, how bad can it really be? Like, I feel like I need to know, so I'm going to go experience it myself. No. So it's a fun read. I think that the format is interesting, but is also keeping me a little removed from the story. I think it's like slightly too many interviews, or I wish it was done in more of a mixed media format where someone was writing a blog post or something that like made it feel a little, not more unique, but that it wasn't like just the same thing over and over. And it's not, because the interviews are all telling different parts of the story, but I don't know, I just can't completely put my finger on it, why it's not working as well for me, but it's still feeling like a 4-star read, so I'm really liking it. I'm hoping to finish this up tonight because I have less than 60 pages left. Also, I looked at this cover for so long and didn't realize this person was down here. I just saw these people up here. They have to wear the bags on their heads in the haunt, so I'm gonna finish it, come back with my final thoughts soon, but I'm excited. So I finished The Last Haunt, and I don't know how I feel about this book. So I had read like the first half of it initially, and I was like, oh, I think it's going to be 4 stars. And then I feel like the last half just didn't keep me as invested as I thought it was going to. So in part 2, we are learning about what happened to Jessica, and then, well, chapter 2. This is how it's split up. So chapter 2 is the smallest, and then in chapter 3, I was kind of expecting this like big culmination of everything to happen, and I feel like it was kind of what happened, but also it felt kind of anticlimactic. So in chapter 3, we are learning about what happened in the McKinley Manor massacre, and I just feel like the kind of documentary interview kind of thing kept me not really invested in the story, and I think that the like big climax of everything kind of was underwhelming. It's a very quick read. It generally was enjoyable, but I never felt like super into the story. This is probably my least favorite, I think. Yeah, I gave 2 of his books 4 stars and then 1 5. So I still enjoyed it, but I think that the format of everything and then the, I guess, limitations that were on it because of it being so heavily inspired by true things. I don't think that the like way that it wrapped up is inspired by things, but I think that the haunted house itself was not very interesting, which I think really didn't help the story. So glad that I read this one because I really enjoy Max Booth stuff in general, but not a favorite for me. So we have 3 stars and 30 more points. We are back again to pick our last book from Goodreads. Your interest in horror, more for this genre. Why does it look like this? Okay, cool. Okay, just a reminder that this has to be an author that I have not read from, or it could be one that I have read from and disliked. Okay, I've read from Rachel Harrison. Okay. My Darling Dreadful Thing, maybe that one. Oh, bugs. Okay, The Haunting of Elkwood could work. I've read a lot of these authors. I'm kind of in between My Darling Dreadful Thing and The Haunting of Elkwood, but I am going to go with The Haunting of Elkwood. I've heard such good things about this one, and I'm really excited to read it. So I have made it to chapter 7 in The Haunting of Elkwood, which is 97 pages in, and I'm really liking this one. It's definitely a slower moving book. At this point, there's not a lot of like typical horror things going on, but there are ghosts. So we are following Talitha, and she has had this very interesting experience with her
and 2 of her friends. So the Velkwood vicinity, which is pretty much Velkwood Road, there's like 8 houses that pretty much disappeared. It's one of those situations where there's like a cult following around it. There's documentaries, scientists trying to investigate, and nobody knows what caused this and like where the town is and what kind of happened to everybody. So there are only 3 people that can enter this street. They are people that lived there, and there's this company that is trying to get in contact with all of them to get one of them to go back to investigate. And our main character, Talitha, whose family was the first one to move in, ends up deciding to go because she is shown photos and she sees her sister and wants to try to help her. So it's her and her mom and her younger sister who she very much tried to take care of, but she has never moved on from this whole situation that happened. And then whenever the researcher tracks her down, she immediately is like, no, but she has really no money. They agree to pay her, and she agrees to go in. And the very first time it happens, she's only supposed to be in there for an hour, and she comes out, and it's been 3 months. And we are just learning very slowly about what caused this to happen. We know that there's like something with Talitha and her friends that is involved with the whole disappearance of the street. I can't exactly picture, like, is the street just like, it looks like nothing's there? Did like a weird gap like close? Like, I don't really understand that, but I am liking it. I'm not obsessed at this point, but I think it's very interesting, and it could go into some more directions that cause me to be a little more invested. But it is good, and it feels very unique, which I like. I have made it. I hate that the chapters don't tell you the page number when it's a new chapter, and a lot of the times there's this like blank page, so I don't even know how many pages in I am. I'm 159 pages into The Haunting of Velkwood. Also, real quick, because this is in here, I just wanted to show you this bookmark. I'm obsessed with it. It's one of my Patreon bookmarks. It is the October bookmark, so if you do join the top tier, this bookmark will be sent out at the end of the month. I've been obsessed with holographic foil. Like, it's just so fun, and I love green, so just wanted to show that off because it's very cute. Oh, I lied. I'm on chapter 12. I was listening to the audiobook for this part. This is way more emotional than I was expecting it to be. I think it's really good though. There's a lot of moving parts to this book. So we have this town that disappeared, and then it's also tied to our main character's past, her and her relationship with 2 of her friends. We still haven't discovered everything with that, but we know that they didn't really have great home lives. So there's a lot of very sad moments between our main character and one of her best friends and both of their families separately. Like, it's just so heartbreaking to see parents treat their children in this way. And yes, it was in the, like, I don't know, decent amount of time ago, 20 years ago, and I guess it's set in the present. But I just cannot fathom treating your children like they are not an acceptable human for a lot of things. I feel like this isn't really any sort of like thing to keep from you for some reason. Our main character and then one of her best friends, who is also in the book, like mentioned a lot, had the start of a relationship when they were growing up, and the way that that was responded to was just horrific. So that has just been really sad. And then seeing the way that that and people's expectations of them drove them apart to the relationship that they have now in the present, that is very not good. Like, they're not in like a toxic relationship. They just like barely speak to each other, but they just have this like connection and this pull to each other. So I think that there's a lot of really good commentary surrounding that. Really the impact of how people in your family treat you because of like any sort of difference, and how that really, really messes up the rest of your life if it is not done in an acceptable way. There's also other family issues that are happening. It's all very sad. And then I'm liking seeing how much our main character, Talitha, wants to try to help her sister that was left behind. Whenever she's going back to this town to do investigating, there's glimpses into the way that things were left when the town disappeared. And that is just also very intriguing because there are certain things that are just kind of odd, and then this town itself is changing a little bit as well. But like, we don't know why that is happening. The little bits of the backstory with what caused all of this to even start are very unique. This whole book feels like nothing I've read before, and I am enjoying it. I'm not completely sucked into the story, but I think it's really, really good. It's engaging, it's entertaining, and also heartbreaking. I am wrapped up in the story. This is a short one. It won't take me much longer to finish, and I'm scared that I'm going to be really sad at the end, but also I'm looking forward to it.
This might sound dramatic, but at the end of this, I was fighting for my life. And by that, I mean I was trying really hard to keep the tears in because I'm not a crier. Books typically don't make me cry, but this one, I don't know what it was. It really got to me. And I was just so shocked that that happened. Even thinking about it now just gets me so emotional. The way that this wrapped up was a little quick moving, I think, but just like seeing these characters kind of accept things and also still fight for what they need as people, just I feel like I got a heart during this book. I think that the character work was just so good to make me feel this way because this is a very slow moving plot. There's never really any like fast-paced, tense moments in this book, but I just found myself so invested, and I ended up really loving it. Throughout most of this book, it was feeling like a 4-star read for me, and then the last third bumped it up to a 5. So that is 50 points for Goodreads now. So we have 3 stars, which is 30 points for Anybody Home. Another 3-star and 30 points for The Last Haunt. And then 5 stars and 50 points for The Haunting of Velkwood, which brings our total to 110. I was getting a little nervous after the first 2 books, especially because I would have predicted that one of them would have been at least 4.5 stars. But Goodreads pulled ahead at the last minute and now have ended up in 3rd place. So we do still have BookTube and Bookstagram tied for 1st place, but Goodreads showed up and is now in 3rd place. Then we have Pango Books in 4th place and Libro FM in 5th place. If you want to leave me an emoji just to say you were here, you can leave me a house for The Haunting of Velkwood. Actually, that kind of works for all of these books. Next up, you will be seeing me read recommendations from Kindle Unlimited. So let me know in the comments where you think that will end up ranking. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you very soon. Bye.